Thank you, Judy. It is fantastic seeing so many of the Tech family, the Tech former students. Mark asked me to talk a little bit about concrete, so I've worked that into my program here today. But thanks for being here. It's really great to see so many of the Tech family here. You know, this has been quite a whirlwind since December the 4th. And on July the 1st, when I took office, I had an immediate major task. And that was to hire an athletics director. You know, nobody cares what you do in terms of hiring a vice president or a dean or a department head. But there's only one thing more visible than hiring an athletics director, and that's hiring a head football coach, which was my first task after I was named president in December the 4th. President No asked me to do that. So I was really glad to get past me, and I think we've got a great person in Tommy McClellan to lead our athletics program. And I hope you have the opportunity to meet with him soon. He's really a dynamic, energetic, and visionary person. But we're not here to talk about athletics today, not very much. The message I want to leave with you today is the importance of a research university to North Louisiana, to the Shreveport Bossier community, and the role that I believe Louisiana Tech will play for us, not only now, but in the future, in building this economy. I'm very fortunate to have spent 25 years under the direct working relationship with Dr. Dan Renaud, who truly, through his passion and dedication and commitment, built Louisiana Tech into a national research university. And I'll back that up here in a few minutes. I like to think of Louisiana Tech not just as a research university, but one that's an entrepreneurial research university. And I think that is most significant and distinguishes Louisiana Tech from a lot of others. Tech has had a long history with the Shreveport Bossier community. About 25% of our freshmen come to Louisiana Tech from Caddo, Bossier, or DeSoto parishes. And we have 11,000 alumni that live in Shreveport and Bossier. And many of you are here today are part of that. So Tech and Shreveport Bossier are intertwined. We've grown together over the years, and I think there are even greater opportunities to grow in the future, and I'm firmly committed to do that. I want to put this in context. I want to talk a little bit about higher education in general. I've been a part of higher education as an administrator and professor for 35 years, so I've got a little bit of perspective on that. But right now, higher ed is undergoing major dramatic changes that we anticipated at some point, but it is coming. It's here and it's escalating rapidly. The business models for higher education are really changing significantly. And part of this is because of the decline in state and federal revenues, not just in Louisiana, but all across the nation, and a higher dependence upon students to pay their way through tuition and fees to the universities. I'm a former engineering professor, but just managing engineering programs and high-cost programs is getting to be more and more of a challenge because when you're dependent on those tuition and fees, it's very difficult. There's not a formula that makes adjustments based on the cost of the program. It is the tuition and fee, and so you really have to be focused on that. You either grow in this business or you die. And so growth is absolutely essential to all of our universities, and thereby you see the increased competition. Look in this community at the universities, the global institutions that are coming in here to deliver services or coming in here to recruit our students out of here to go to other states, as always. But I think the competition is more than ever. But there's still a demand and the expectations are increasing. People are expecting greater access to higher education. They're expecting it to be more affordable, and they're expecting universities to perform better. And we should do that in each and every case, just like you have to do that in your businesses, and that's our commitment. And I would say one other issue that we deal with every day, and that is recruiting and retaining the outstanding faculty. Your institution is really built upon those people. If you don't have the top-notch faculty and staff, you cannot compete. And we've been been very fortunate there, and we've been very fortunate in retaining him, but it's more and more challenging to do that every year. So let's talk a little bit about the need for a research university. You know, the United States has typically been the global economic leader. But those trends are changing as we've seen the investments in China and India and throughout Asia for education, investments in education, investments in research. I visited China a few years ago, and they were building whole new research universities just from scratch. It was a top priority, and their goal was to have the top 10 universities in the world over the next 20 years. And I believe they're on that track to do that. So that is real concerning. But if you look even in this nation, real economic growth has largely been in the United States based on innovation. Through the innovation of things like computers and the internet and batteries and lasers and all of those sorts of things have really driven our economy throughout. And the most prosperous communities in the United States are those where there's a density of these highly talented and knowledgeable college graduates, educated folks. If you look at Boston or San Jose or Austin or Raleigh, North Carolina, that model is replicated over and over at different scales. I believe that the future clearly belongs to communities that can match innovative ideas that drive technology forward with educated workers that can actually take those things and make money out of those ideas. And so both the need for the education and the research can only be provided by a research university. And that's where we really focused our attention. There are some key sectors here in North Louisiana that I think have ripe opportunities for growth due to innovation. And some of those are the energy sector, the communications, the cyber, the software sector is really something that's taken off here in North Louisiana. Advanced manufacturing is going to take off again nationally, and it's important for us in North Louisiana, particularly the Shreveport Rotary community, to be a key part of that. And I believe to be successful, we're going to have to lead in research and innovation. So what has been our strategy at Louisiana Tech to build this as a national research university? And this really began 4 decades ago when Dan Renault started a biomedical engineering program that people thought he was crazy in doing, but really established one of the preeminent biomedical programs. And then we began to build upon that over the years, really by focusing on the overall research enterprise and the graduate programs. We also focused on the quality of our student body, and in 1991 we went with selective admissions, which was really a big risk, but it has paid huge dividends for Louisiana Tech. Our research programs, we really began to focus on what we saw coming as the 21st century areas of biotech and information technology and nanotechnology, those related areas, and in fact that's proven out to be a very wise strategy on the university's part. We gradually invested in facilities, world-class research facilities and world-class faculty and the academic programs and the other kind of programs that it needed to be successful, and always being very focused and strategic in how we invested. I think the most significant thing that Louisiana Tech did was we integrated our research and our academic programs and integrated it in an interdisciplinary way. You know, you've got traditional disciplines of physics, chemistry, biology, civil engineering, but innovation occurs at the interface of those disciplines when you bring them together. And we set up structures that allow those interdisciplinary interactions to occur every day. And the innovation has really come out the root, I would say, at Louisiana Tech, not only in research, but in our academic programs. So over the past 12 years, we began to focus more on things like intellectual property and commercialization and industry partnerships, things like that. We focused on business development, helping companies succeed in a high-tech kind of environment. Focused on incubation infrastructure. We've got 2 incubators right now that are largely full of young startup kinds of companies. We've really worked in more recent years of building industry partnerships and securing private investments. and always engaging the community to understand what the community's needs are and then how we may work together to move forward. So where are we now, Louisiana Tech, after those investments? Where are we? And I'd like to share that with you. Louisiana Tech is in a very strong position, both across the state of Louisiana and the nation. We've got an excellent reputation nationally, from academics to innovation and research, and to, yes, even athletics. Enrollment-wise, Louisiana Tech last fall had 11,360 students. Been fairly stable there. We definitely have to see those numbers go higher. The average ACT for entering freshmen at Louisiana Tech was 24.1 last fall, the highest ever. 88% of our first-time full-time freshmen at Louisiana Tech are top scholars. In other words, the state of Louisiana pays their tuition and fees to come to Louisiana Tech. 21% of our students are graduate students, with several hundred doctoral students. And last year, we produced 54 doctoral graduates at Louisiana Tech. The year before, we produced, I think, 45 or 46. So that really begins to take us to a different level. And those doctoral graduates are coming from business, engineering, science, education, psychology, and about 12 different programs there. Louisiana Tech leads the University of Louisiana system, and we're very proud of that, on graduation rates, on retention rates. It takes less time to get your degree in whatever you come to school in. If you come to Louisiana Tech, you get your degree in less time than you would in any other location. And we're proud of that. We've introduced several new academic programs, and we have some really signature programs. We've talked about accounting and forestry and finance and other kinds of programs, but we've introduced some other programs that we think respond to innovation and workforce needs, like our most recent PhD in molecular sciences and nanotechnology, which will fit real nicely with the medical profession and things that are taking place here in the Shreveport Rotary community. We have a bachelor's in nanosystems engineering, so now you can come to Louisiana Tech and go bachelor's through the PhD in nanotechnology, and there's no other place in the country where you can do that. This last fall, we introduced a Bachelor's of Science in Cyber Engineering. Cybersecurity, one of the most important things taking place in the nation right now. That program is already in very high demand. And many other programs. We work closely with CenturyLink, and we teach a communications graduate program on the CenturyLink campus. Their facilities, we hired a PhD from MIT that had worked at Bell Labs. He's come in and is teaching there at CenturyLink. And things like an information technology certificate that we're developing for software. The business school has a supply chain management bachelor's degree, and so many other things that we feel are aligning our university more strongly with the needs of business and industry in this area. 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, the Carnegie Foundation recognized Louisiana Tech as a research university with high research activity. Prior to that, we were recognized as a doctoral research university. There's no other university in North Louisiana, South Arkansas, anywhere nearby that is a research university with high research activity. That's not a vote. They have specific criteria how they get there, and that was determined by the Carnegie Foundation. U.S. News and World Report, at about the same time, elevated Louisiana Tech into the top tier of national universities. Now, you take those two things, the Carnegie Foundation and the U.S. News and World Report, and those that meet those criteria, there are only 9 institutions in Louisiana and our surrounding state, 9 public institutions that meet those criteria. And that's LSU, the University of Arkansas, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, University of Texas Austin, Texas A&M, University of Houston, University of Texas Dallas, and Texas Tech, and Louisiana Tech. Those are the only institutions in these 4 states that meet both of those, or all of those criteria. Now, you hear the names of those schools, and they have a lot more faculty, they have a lot more students, they have a lot larger endowments, but we're being named there nationally in the midst of those. And I think that's a real tribute to Dr. Renaud, to our administrators, but mainly our faculty and staff that have worked so hard, been so resourceful in accomplishing so much that elevated Louisiana Tech to that level. Payscale.com recently ranked Louisiana Tech #1 in the state of Louisiana in terms of the median pay when students graduate and get employed from Louisiana Tech. Newsweek ranked us as one of the 25 most affordable colleges. U.S. News and World Report has ranked us in the top 10 in terms of in the nation for graduating students with the least amount of debt, 3 times out of the past 4 years. Kiplinger named Louisiana Tech as one of the nation's top 100 best values in public colleges. And just over the past month, we've had 4 national organizations that have ranked Louisiana Tech in the top 25 in the nation in return on investment. And I think that is a very factual measure of what Louisiana Tech is doing. And we're going to continue that. A little bit on innovation. If you look at Louisiana Tech's innovation engine in terms of intellectual property, based on the size of our research program, we rank in the top 10 in most of these measures that I will tell you. Top 10 nationally. The numbers of inventions. Over the past 5 years, we've had about 130 inventions. We've had about 80 patent applications, about 35 patents that have been issued. We've signed licenses for those technologies with about 25 companies over this past 5 years. We've had about 15 startup companies in little bitty Louisiana Tech, and a lot of them are thriving there or in other communities around here in North Louisiana. We've increased our corporate, government, and university partnerships, and I want to just tell you about 3 or 4 here, real briefly, to give you a sense of the real kinds of impacts that Louisiana Tech faculty are having. Jupiter Fuels, you may have actually seen this one in the news here. I think it ran on one of the television stations here. Took a technology developed by the first graduate of Louisiana Tech in our nanotechnology program that created a nanocrystal catalyst. It basically takes natural gas, flow natural gas by it, and it produces liquid fuels, like diesel or potentially jet fuel. That has escalated to the point where a private investor from Minden has invested several $1 million to build a pilot plant at Camp Minden that is now up in operation, producing 25 gallons per day of diesel. And that's not enough to solve the world's problems. But once the operational parameters get set, that's going to be able to take off and we believe have a significant impact here in North Louisiana and the nation as you see companies like Sasol that have come out in South Louisiana. With this process, we believe is much more efficient than what Sasol was investing $19 billion in South Louisiana for a plant. Don't tell them again. Concrete, Mark, I promise this. One of our faculty members is taking the waste fly ash that comes out of coal burning power plants and is converting that into a concrete that looks just like the concrete you drove over here on the highways. But it has remarkable properties. And we've taken that concrete and tested it at NASA STEMIS under the jet rocket engines to withstand very high pressures, high temperatures, and chemical attacks. And right now we have about 20 partners, including AEP, CLECO, of course NASA, EBRI, the Electric Power Research Institute, and many others around the country. And even in China, there's a company in China that's now licensed that technology to deploy it over there. So we think those are the kinds of innovations that can have a big impact. We're also working with CenturyLink, and I can't discuss the specifics of that, but we are convinced that the technology that we've been developing and testing with them will be a game changer for them in terms of providing new customers and new services, ability to provide new services to customers. And we work very closely with the Cyber Innovation Center. Just recently won a $2.4 million grant that we beat Columbia University, Carnegie Mellon, and Berkeley out in the area of cybersecurity. So there's a lot of partnerships that we have going on. I think we want to look towards expanding our programs here in Bossier, Shreveport and Bossier. We've got the Shreveport Center, which used to be known as the Technology Transfer Center. And we have engineering faculty out there that can be there to support any of your companies or anyone that you know in the community that needs engineering support through internships, through working with faculty as consultants or whatever the needs are there. We're working on professional development and workforce development and business development programs that are offered there and elsewhere throughout this community. Last fall, we offered 20 or more degree programs here in the Shreveport Bossier community, bachelor's through the PhD. And we're going to be committed to expand that in the future. You heard about the Tech Barksdale program that's been here for more than 60 years, and we're going to continue to serve the airmen and their families and others as we grow that enterprise. And we work very closely with LSU Health Science Center, Bob Barish, and his group. We have probably 20 collaborations underway with the Health Science Center, with Willis Knighton, and with other of the medical providers here in the Shreveport Bossier community. And there's a lot more that we could do. So there's a lot going on, and I could spend a lot of time talking about that, but I wanted to give you a sense of the breadth and why it's so important that a university like Louisiana Tech have a research focus, but a focus that's really committed on having an impact in the community. We're not out just doing these things for the good of society. We're doing it for the good of North Louisiana. And we want to work with all of you to make sure that we continue to grow that in a way that will impact this more and more. We want your children, your grandchildren to be able to come to Louisiana Tech and keep jobs here in North Louisiana so they don't do like mine and move to Houston or Jacksonville, Florida to get work. They're actually able to keep that here. I'm committed. Our students will be our #1 priority at Louisiana Tech. Every decision we make will be with the thought of what's in the best interest of our students. And we are convinced. I wish you could hear some of our strategic planning discussions that are underway as we speak with the faculty that are so passionate about making sure our students, when they go there, have an unparalleled educational experience. And we really have some great programs. I'd like to get you over to see those. So together, we would like to work with you. We would like to be here, and I plan to be here regularly. I have been here almost at least once a week since I've assumed the presidency. I'll plan to be here more and more. I'll be here anytime you ask, in fact. And we have 3 or 4 people that are here full-time and a number of other faculty that are here regularly. And we want to be here, and we want to invest in resources that makes this a greater community for all. So thank you for the opportunity to be here to speak and to renew some friendships and relationships with those of you. Thanks so much.
We do have time for questions, so if you have any, please.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Guice, can you compare and contrast your feelings about these new online universities that seem to be everywhere versus a traditional Louisiana Tech classroom style of approach?
I wish I knew the answer to all of that. I do think students now learn differently than they have before, so even at Louisiana Tech, we need to understand the learning patterns of students, and we're doing that. We have faculty members that flip a classroom. They'll video their class in the evening, and then when the students come to class in the day, they spend that time in engaged dialogue and problem solving and teamwork kinds of things. So I think the technology is great. I think the online learning is great for some people that maybe don't have access, but we know that the strength of Louisiana Tech is when you come and you meet face-to-face with our students and our faculty and you experience that. And that's our commitment. I will tell you one thing. Our orientation sessions this summer are packed. Every orientation session has been jam-packed full of good students. And I expect this to be our best class ever, even better than the one Mark and Lee were in. It's just we get so many good students, and it's because of that. It's things that I don't think you can fully learn from. We need to expand our online programs to those that can't gain access to a high-quality education, and we're working on that. We have a health information management program that I think is ideal for this community. We talked about that. It's fully online, and it's a great program. I visited with those faculty, and they put the kind of passion into that program that you would if you're sitting in the classroom with them. It's a great question. We're still struggling with that. And these big universities are offering these things for free. So you can get a free course from Berkeley or MIT or whatever. These called MOOCs, Massive Open Online Courses. And so what happens when we as universities accept that for credit? You talk about blowing the model for higher ed. We need to be cognizant of what's going on.
Yes, sir. What is your student population now, and what do you expect it to be in 2020?
So we are at 11,360, and I've stuck my neck out as president and said we need to be at 15,000. If we could get there at 2020, that would be great. But I believe if you look at other great universities around the nation, Georgia Tech is about 15,000. You know, 15,000 gives you a certain critical mass that you need to really build that momentum. And I think Shreveport-Bossier is a real key part of all of that. But we cannot supply all of the needs that we have for the state of Louisiana right now with 11,360 students. We've got to grow that.
There was an article last week in the Wall Street Journal that was highlighted in particular Loyola of New Orleans as one of a group nationwide that are seeing a significant drop in freshman enrollment for the coming season. Some schools to the tune of 10 or 15% or more down from where they have been in past years. Are you experiencing any of that, or are these so far not too desired?
Ours are going up every year. First-time freshmen are going up. We see good trends there. As I said, our orientation sessions are jam-packed, and we're committed to bringing even more talent. I think this is where you see the pressure of tuitions that have escalated so high that students and families cannot afford to do that. And we're going to have a competitive advantage there, because even though our tuition has gone up significantly the past 5 years, we're still one of the lowest cost and a great bargain institutions that you can find anywhere in this part of the country. Yes?
What is your student population in the College of Engineering? How many engineering disciplines
I can't remember the specific number, but I know when I was dean it was 2,400, and we're about at that same level, 2,400. If you talk to the Secretary of Economic Development, he will tell you right now Louisiana needs about 1,000 more engineers than we produce. We lost a company that would have moved into our research park about a month ago because they needed 200 software engineers. We couldn't produce that quickly. We've got to grow to bring those companies and those jobs in this area. So we have, I think, 8 or 9 bachelor's degrees in engineering. We have 2 bachelor's degrees in engineering technology. We have computer science and all of the physics, chemistry, and physics, and the College of Engineering and Science. And we have several master's programs and PhD programs in engineering and science. Really a great place to learn. And some of our PhD graduates, by the way, are staying in North Louisiana, starting companies and being successful in running those programs. All the kind of things that you would hope to see. We just need to make more of it. We need to do more.
Last night, I drove into the select commissions. I wouldn't get into Louisiana Tech.
Me either.
How many qualified students are there graduating that meet the select commission forecast?
That's the real sad story for Louisiana. There are less than 5,000 students in the state of Louisiana each year, and that number's going down of those that would be qualified to come to Louisiana Tech. We can't get to where we need to be as an institution based on just using Louisiana graduates. We get our fair share of those, but we have to be aggressive at looking out of state and bringing students here from Texas and elsewhere, and we're doing that. We're looking very seriously at those options right now. Now understand, you know, not in Shreveport-Bossier, but a lot of our communities are declining, and that's out-migration, and we've got to fill that back in, and that's where things like our entrepreneurial programs and business support programs can be so helpful.